Well, hello, math nerds. Here we go with Math 0028, the 1.2 U-Tries. So let's get started. Letter A, we have the problem 2 equals 5b plus 12, and we're trying to solve for b. So the first thing you need to get rid of is the 12. So we're going to subtract 12 from both sides of the equation, and that gives you 2 minus 12 would be negative 10 equals 5b, and the 12's cancel. Make sure that those do cancel or you're doing the wrong thing. Then the next step, we need to get rid of the 5, so we're going to use division because that's multiplication there. Divide by 5 on both sides, so b equals negative 2. Now, letter B, we have 7 minus 9a equals 4. So we're trying to first get the 9a term by itself. So we're going to subtract and get rid of the 7. Subtract 7 from both sides. The 7's cancel. Be careful of your sign. What comes down is negative 9a equals negative 3. 4 minus 7. Okay? Now, so many people look at this and they go 3, which is wrong. So you have to divide by negative 9 on both sides because you're still trying to get that a by itself. So that this does this all again. All right, that should get rid of that. So the 9's need to cancel so that you get the a all by itself. That's your goal, always, to get that variable. Now over here, some people still look at this and see 3 and 9, they see 3. But the 3 is on top, so that's going to be a fraction. If the smaller number's on top, it's going to be a fraction. 2 negatives on a fraction is going to give you a positive. But we can reduce the 3/9 by 3 on the top and bottom, and so that's going to give you a positive 1/3. All right, letter C. This is where a lot of people start to have problems because they get mixed up on what's going where. What you need to see is that you've got variables on both sides of the equal sign. You've got 10a over here, actually negative 10a, and negative 9a over here. I am always going to move the variable terms to the left just because that's easier, and you know, that's the way Beyonce goes, right? To the left, to the left. So we're going that way too. So I'm going to add 9a to both sides because I want to cancel out that negative 9a. I want those to be gone. And so on the left I have 6, and then negative 10 plus 9 would be negative a, or negative 1a. That might be easier to write that 1 there right now. Equals 8. So now you're back to what we just did. Now we need to get the 1a by itself, get that variable term, because we moved the variables to the left, so I'm going to move this constant, this 6, to the right. I'm going to subtract 6 so that those cancel, the 6's cancel, and I have negative 1a equals 8 minus 6 would be 2. And then your last step, you need to get rid of that negative 1, and since it's multiplication, you're going to divide by negative 1. So a equals negative 2. Okay? Letter D, same thing. I'm still going to move my variables. I'm still going to move them to the left. So if you have one way of doing it every time, you're going to be so much better off because then you don't get mixed up. So I'm going to subtract 2n from both sides. So 5n minus 2n is 3n plus 3 equals 1 because the 2n's canceled. Now we need to get rid of this constant because we moved the variables. Now we move the constants to the other side. So I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. So 3n comes down. These 3's are canceled. And 1 minus 3, or 1 and negative 3, gives me negative 2. And then your last step, again, to divide. Divide by 3 on both sides. So the 3's cancel, and we have n equals negative 2/3. So when you write your answer in WebAssign, you can either put the negative sign before the fraction, you could also write it in the numerator, or you could write it in the denominator. They will accept it all three ways. I think they like it before the fraction the best, but either way is fine. Doesn't matter. Okay, letter E. When people read this problem, they don't know what to do. That's what kind of freaks them out. It says if 2 minus 6a equals 5 minus 3a, evaluate 4a squared minus 2a plus 1. And you're like, what the heck does that mean? What they want you to do is you're going to solve for a in the first equation. In this equation right here, 2 minus 6a equals 5 minus 3a. Once you get a, then you're going to plug in a, okay, whatever you get for a, whatever that number equals, that's going to get plugged into that other expression, okay? So we're going to start with this equation. Over here, 2 minus 6a equals 5 minus 3a. So again, I'm going to get rid of the variable term on the right, move it to the left. So I have 2 comes down, negative 6 plus 3 would be negative 3a equals 5, and the 3a's are gone. Now I need to get rid of the constant. I'm going to move the 2. So I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides. So those 2's cancel. Negative 3a comes down and it equals 5 minus 2 would be 3. And then divide by negative 3 on both sides. So a equals negative 1. Now, if you put negative 1 into WebAssign, it's wrong because you're not done yet. That's just the first step. Now that we know that a equals negative 1, we're going to plug in negative 1 into this expression, okay? So over here, I'm going to have 4 times negative 1 squared minus 2 times negative 1 plus 1. So I substituted negative 1 everywhere there was an a in that expression. And now you simplify. So remember your order of operations. The first thing you have to do is your exponent. So 4 comes down, negative 1 squared, negative times a negative is a positive 1. Okay, we can go ahead and multiply on this second part here. Negative 2 times negative 1 is a positive 2 plus 1. Okay, so then we need to do this multiplication with the 4 and the 1. 4 times 1 is 4 plus 2 plus 1. Now it's all addition. 4 plus 2 is 6 plus 1 would be 7. That is your answer that you put into WebAssign. Okay? Okay, letter F, we're getting into equations with parentheses. So your first step is to use your distributive property to get rid of the parentheses. Then we're going to combine like terms and go from there. So the first thing we're going to do is distribute the 2 through this parentheses and the 3 on the other side of the equal sign through those parentheses. So right now the 4x comes down. We don't do anything with that. If we distribute the 2, you're going to get plus 2x, and 2 times 3 would be 6. And then on the other side of the equal sign, 3 times x is 3x, and 3 times negative 1 is going to be a negative 3. Now, if you look on the left side of the equation, you've got like terms, 4x plus 2x. When they're on the same side of the equal sign, you combine them exactly the way they're written. So 4 plus 2 would be 6x plus 6 equals 3x minus 3. Now we're back to what we were doing a few minutes ago, or a couple seconds, it seems like. We're going to move the 3x to the left. I'm going to move the variables to the left. So I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides. Now 6x minus 3x is 3x plus 6 equals negative 3. Okay, that comes down. Now we have to move the constant. So I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides. The 3x still comes down. Make sure those 6's cancel. And negative 3 and negative 6 adds up to negative 9. And then divide by 3 on both sides. So x equals negative 3. So at least it came out to a nice answer. That's not too bad. Okay? Letter G. So here, this is what messes up a lot of people because they want to do something with the 7a in the parentheses, which is actually wrong. What's right outside those parentheses is a negative sign, and I'm going to put a 1 in there because we're going to distribute a negative 1 to those two terms. Okay? So what we do with the 7a is we just bring it down. And then negative 1 times 3a is going to be negative 3a. And a negative 1 times negative 4, negative times a negative is a positive 4a. and then equals 12. Now we've got like terms here on the left. 7a minus 3a would be 4a plus 4 equals 12. Remember, get the 4a term by itself, so subtract 4 from both sides, because we didn't have variables on both sides, only on one side, okay? So the 4a comes down, the 4's are canceled, and 12 minus 4 would be 8, okay? And your last step, divide by 4, and so we have a equals 2. Nice answer. And that is it. Yay, 1.2. Done. I just can't get the thing to stop.